Today we're answering your questions on podcast and content creation. These 10 questions came from the Riverside community and right here on the YouTube channel. So if you have questions for future videos, we're doing one of these a month and we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below this video with your question about gear, podcasting, YouTube, using Riverside, or anything else, and you could be featured in the next community Q&A. First up, we've had a lot of questions about using different languages in Riverside, and Riverside supports up to 100 languages, but you can only have one language per studio. So here in your Riverside account, you can go down to the settings of any studio, and then you'll see language, and you can choose any of the languages here, and your studio will then give you transcriptions based on that language. And don't forget, you can create multiple studios, so if you want to have specific languages, one for Spanish, Hindi, and others, create those studios, and you can set that language individually here. WebSpark1 had a great question about creating clips. He makes edits to the transcript, but then feels like he has to make those edits every time he creates a new clip. So here's actually my strategy for editing the full episode of my podcast and creating clips. I'll jump into one of my projects, and you might notice our project page looks a little different. We're going to be updating this and rolling it out soon, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for my explainer video on the updated projects page. So right after we record, the first thing you're likely going to do is have the full episode or the full-length piece of content. So when you're in the editor, this was one of our recent episodes, by the way. Let's say you've made all the changes, added music, used our AI tools like to remove silence and filler words, even get a multicam look with our smart layouts. When you go to export, after you've made all the changes, let's say you're going 4K quality, click Export Video. Right here, choose Keep Editing. Again, make sure it has the full length of your content with all your edits in this clip. And then what I'll do is I'll actually name this draft Pull Clips. Then when I want to pull multiple clips from that recording, I'll go to my Pull Clips draft here, and this will always live as a draft. And to pull that clip, I'll select text. Remember, this has all the edits and AI tools already applied. And then I'll click this button right here, which is Create New Edit. This will leave my Pull Clips draft by itself, so it still has all my edits and changes, and then creates a new draft with just the text that I had selected. I can quickly reformat this to a vertical video. Maybe I want to add animated captions. And now I have just the clip I want, and I can export this in up to 4K quality, and go ahead and rename this something specific, like the subject of this clip, and we'll go to Export Video. Then, when I go back to my dashboard, I'll just keep returning to my Pull Clips draft, and all the changes that I had are still there. Natasha is asking, is there a way to download the subtitles of your recordings as a .srt format? Absolutely. I'll go right back here into the editor, and in that draft that has all my changes saved, I'm going to click the three dots here in the top left, and I'm going to click Download Subtitles. Once that file downloads, it will be in .srt format, which then you can upload directly to your YouTube studio for those more accurate captions. If you want to download that SRT file of your full recording, you can go to the source files here in your project, scroll down to the bottom, and where it says transcript, just click download, and you'll see the subtitle or .srt version there. Now this next one is a more advanced setup with Riverside. Bicycle Mind is asking, what is the best way to record me and two guests when those two guests are physically in the same location and I'm in a different location? Now, when you record with multiple people in the same room using Riverside, the best method is to have a device per person, and that can be just a mobile device like an iPhone or iPad. I have lots of videos talking about using a mobile device with Riverside. I'll link one of those above. But what I would do is get a tripod, could be a floor length or desktop tripod, have this pointed at one of the in-person guests, another at the other in-person guests, and then connect a USB microphone to that mobile device, that iPhone or Android device. That means each of them will have a separate track recording, and they'll be recorded on video, and you can use things like smart scenes to switch between the active speaker because they'll each have a microphone connected to their mobile device that's videoing them. Now, the one challenging part is they need to hear you remotely without also hearing the echo themselves. So on one of the mobile devices in that remote location, go to the three-dot menu in the Riverside app when you're about to record and tap Mute Device. This way, no sound will come out of that device, but it's still recording that USB microphone. On the other mobile device, I would get a headphone splitter and plug it into the USB microphone, and then have both of the in-person guests in that remote location wear each of the headphones. Then both of those remote guests will be able to hear you, who's remote. They'll get separate recordings, 3 video tracks, 3 audio tracks, and you can record as the host somewhere else, and it'll work great. This next question from Kevin is a similar situation. He has 3 people in the same room, but doesn't want to use external microphones, just use mobile devices. How would they do that with Riverside? One of the challenges of just using the built-in microphones on like an iPhone or iPad is it's going to pick up everyone's voice equally. So it's going to be really difficult to isolate those tracks later. And you're basically going to hear an echo whenever someone speaks because it's being recorded in multiple microphones. But what you can do is set up 3 mobile devices to record each of the 3 people in the room. And then here in the Riverside editor, it is going to take some work, but the first thing I would apply is the smart mute. That's going to mute people's tracks when they're not speaking. Now this is going to be imperfect because all the microphones are picking up everyone's voice because they're all in the same room and it's just using the built-in mics. But that'll help get you part of the way there. Then you're going to want to go into the Expand Tracks tool, and you'll see the individual audio tracks for every guest. Then what you'll want to do is when someone's speaking, like here I am speaking with the purple waveforms, whatever the other mics were picking up, which you'll see here in the tracks, you're going to want to drag these muted sections to mute their tracks. This way you only hear the one person speaking. This is going to be a little tedious, and because the microphones picked up everyone, Magic Mute is not going to be ideal, but this will allow you to clean up that audio, mute the other tracks when one person is speaking, and do it all without buying any mics and just using your mobile device. Next question, Steve was asking, what are some options for a center of screen camera, struggling to look at the camera when the person's face is in sight? So you have 2 options here. One, you can get a dedicated teleprompter like the Elgato prompter and actually drag your Riverside window over to that, and then you'll be looking at your guests in the eye, but also staring right down the camera. And that works with mobile device cameras, mirrorless cameras, and more. The other option would be getting a camera or webcam that you literally hang down on the middle of the screen. But if you can get the camera of your device and the remote guest face close enough together, it'll look like you're looking into the camera, but also you'll be able to see your guests without any obstacles. In a YouTube comment, Rasmus was saying, I recommended no processing on the Rodecaster Pro II. They find it a little boring and seems like you're missing out on the benefits with an expensive audio interface. That's totally a fair point. When you get a Rodecaster Pro II, it's likely to use all the features. And I'll link my video on the Rodecaster Pro II above and down in the video description, but you'll see here under each microphone, not only do you select the kind of mic, but there's a bunch of processing effects here, like a high pass filter. You can also DS, which is great. I actually do that in post-production. Use a compressor, and there's even effects like reverb and echo, and you can add all of that onto your microphone. So the reason why I turn all this off is because you can apply all these effects after the fact. You can add de-essing and EQ once you record your raw audio. But if you apply these on the Rodecaster Pro II while you record, there's no way to remove those effects later. So if you don't like what the de-esser or the high pass filter did while you're recorded, there's no way to change that after the fact. Whereas if you record raw with no effects, then you can do whatever you want after, add or remove effects. Now, one caveat there is if you're going to live stream, which Riverside has some great live streaming tools allowing you to simulcast to multiple social platforms at the same time, then you actually might want to use some of that processing because it can make your live audio sound really good. So if you're live streaming, use those effects so you can sound great live, and those will be baked into your audio later. Or you can do what I do is after I record raw audio, I actually bring it into Isotope RX10, and I'll apply a de-esser, breath control, and some other effects, which again, you can always add these effects afterwards, but you can never remove them if they're baked in while you record. And if you never plan to use those effects, you can look at more inexpensive audio interface options, and I did a whole video on that. I'll link it above. Matt Gilhooly in our Riverside community over on Facebook, which I'll link below. You should definitely join. There's almost 20,000 people in there. He talked about his setup for actually using a lot of AI tools in Riverside to edit, and then bringing that out to Logic Pro to finish editing. Well, if you want to use the AI tools here in Riverside to remove filler words, silences, cut fluff, and more, but then bring the raw audio out to edit in separate tracks, what you can do is, once you've made all your changes, expand the tracks using this tool here again, and then if you select a track, like my audio here, I can choose to mute that entire track. And if I zoom out, you'll see those waveforms are still there, but the entire track is muted. Then what you could do is go to Export, go over to Audio, and then export the uncompressed wave file, the high quality audio, click Export Audio Only, but then when you see this pop up, choose Keep Editing. I'll keep editing, which creates a duplicate of this clip, and then I'll go in and unmute that one track and go to my track and I'll mute that, and then go over to audio and export a second wave file. So now I have 2 separate audio tracks and it still has all my AI edits through Riverside. Then I can bring that to Logic Pro and finish it however I'd like. The next question, Jessica Lamb is asking about live podcast recording. They've been invited to do a live podcast at an event and looking for as much advice as they can get. Now, typically when you record with Riverside, you want everyone to have a separate audio track, and that necessitates a device per person, But for a live podcast like this, I would recommend using an audio interface like the Vocaster 2. You can plug 2 microphones into that, or if you need more power, the Rodecaster do, or even more, the Rodecaster Pro II. Then have your multiple microphones go into that one audio interface. Then connect that interface to Riverside, and now you can record. Everyone's microphones will be in the same track, but you can use Magic Audio and our leveling features to make sure everything's the same volume in the edit. Then on the video side, if you want to do a multi-camera stream from that live event, you can set up multiple iPhone devices and actually switch between them live in Riverside. I did a whole video on live stream layouts talking about those features. I'll link it above and down below as well. Or if you want to use higher end cameras like mirrorless cameras, I will get something like a Blackmagic A10 Mini switcher or even the Rodecaster Video. Then you can switch between those cameras live while you're recording, and that can be recorded in Riverside or shown on another display. If you have a particular setup and maybe some limitations on video versus audio versus how many people are in it, let me know down in the comments and we can do a whole video on some advanced setups with Riverside. That'd be pretty fun too. Last question, Regina is asking about suppressing background noise while recording. Can Riverside do that? She's seen other services do that too. Now, when you go into record with Riverside, you do choose whether or not you're using headphones. If someone is not using headphones, make sure on the People tab here on the right that echo cancellation is enabled. That's going to help cut down on the noise that when other people are talking, it's not feeding back through their microphone. Now, when it comes to suppressing that background audio, at the moment, we don't have that ability to do it live while you record. You can adjust someone's volume, and adjusting the slider will reduce that sound live while you record, but it's not going to affect the recording of that other person, so you don't have to worry about it being too low in the recording. So adjust their volume here. You might have to mute them while they're talking if there's too much background noise, but once you get it recorded, here in the editor, you're going to want to use that same tool called Smart Mute. This way, whenever that person is not talking, their track will be muted and you won't hear that background noise at all. And if you need even more help, you can go to the Magic Audio settings and apply Magic Audio just to their track, and you can even choose the percentage at which to apply Magic Audio, around 70 to 80% if there's a lot of background noise, and they will sound studio quality. So those are 10 questions from you in the community and the YouTube comments, but we'd love for you to keep them coming. So drop your questions down below this video. You can also go to our Facebook community, join us there and leave your questions, and we'd love to feature it in our future videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the Riverside channel and hit that like button. Lots of new features and new tutorials coming soon. Or if you'd like to upgrade maybe your USB microphone, but you're not sure what to get, I did an entire roundup of 9 different USB mics, and I ranked my top 3. You can check that video right up here. And if you want to learn more about repurposing your content, maybe you record a podcast or long form video, you want to know the fastest way to make clips and disperse that on social media, check out this video right up here. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to see what you create.